My name is Mark Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of Marketing, Communication, and Public Relations at the Peralta Community College District. Welcome to the Laney College President Forum. This session, we are featuring Dr. Rudy Besikof, who is the Interim President at Laney College. Before Dr. Besikof gives his opening statement, I'd like to take care of a little bit of housekeeping here. We are in a webinar format. We would prefer if we were all together in a room or seeing each other and having an open conversation. But in order to keep the experience consistent for all of the candidates, we've been handling this as a Zoom webinar. So please submit any questions that you have for Dr. Besikof through the Q&A feature. And we'll work through the Q&A in the order in which the questions are received. Your feedback on the Laney College President candidates is very important to us. Please download and fill out the forms for each of the candidates and email them to Mr. Brandon Christian in the Chancellor's office. Brandon is collecting all of the community feedback forms so that Chancellor Walter can give them a look and have that factor into the decision. So with that, as far as our agenda, so Dr. Besikof will give an opening statement, then we'll answer questions, and at 1:40, I'm going to cut the questions off and give Dr. Besikof an opportunity for a closing statement. So that's our plan for this afternoon. And with that, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Dr. Rudy Besikof as a candidate for Laney College President. Over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and good afternoon to everyone. It is really great to be here today. And I'd like to begin my introduction this morning by saying that it has been my great pleasure to serve as the acting, and then after I was offered the position, the interim president role at Laney College, and to be entrusted with that responsibility. And I also celebrate the fact that I was fortunate enough to be a finalist today and have the opportunity to speak to all of you. Obviously, I imagine there will be some questions out there, and I want to make room for those. But as I open up today, I want to talk to you a little bit about my background, perhaps share some things you don't know about me, Laney folks who are on the line. Get into the work that we have collaboratively done, both in the role as Vice President of Instruction and then over the past few months as President, and then finish by talking about vision moving forward, especially if I am the successful candidate. So a little bit about me first. I actually began my career in education back in 1989. In fact, I started teaching even before I graduated from college. I was living in France, and just really wanted to make my experience whole as someone who was in the culture. And I had an opportunity to teach English to aerospace engineers and took it and did that. And then following that experience, my teaching abroad continued, and as I spent 3.5 years in Japan. And then in 1997, returned to the United States, and up until 2011, was in the classroom. My experience, certainly a lot of teaching that I can talk about, but really the things that, there were some things that were very impactful to me. First, I taught education courses where I was teaching other teachers about teaching in multicultural classrooms and preparing them to enter that setting with UC San Diego. And then as a full-time faculty member later at Long Beach City College, during my 7 years there, again, it was kind of that something extra beyond the classroom that I pursued. I served as the equal employment opportunity representative on hiring committees, because fairness is something that is critical to me, especially in this world of education. I was among many other things I did, I also served on the Academic Senate, first as Secretary Treasurer, and then as Curriculum Committee Chair. And during that time, we actually approved the first degrees for transfer at Long Beach City College. And all of this work took place in a very collaborative setting, as you can imagine. But a lot of those experiences and just getting so much out of community college that I did as a faculty member led me to the conclusion that I wanted to be an administrator, that I wanted to take on that aspect of educational leadership. So I made the investment of becoming a doctoral student in UCLA's educational leadership program. And I got my Doctor of Education degree in educational leadership. And it was a great experience. And I actually finished with a 3.89 GPA, and I won the School of Education's Outstanding Dissertation Award. Now, why do you think I would mention those two things? Actually, the reason is this. I was in a cohort. I benefited from the personal attention from faculty that were teaching us. Can you possibly imagine turning in 90 pages of your dissertation and having your dissertation chair not only email, but call you the same day with feedback? That was the level of personal attention I got. In that setting, I also had support. Whether it was filing my dissertation or whatever it was, the staff and the staff support for that program provided students who were enrolled that incredible amount of support. And then in pay it forward fashion, there was mentorship in that program that I've continued as well as a graduate, not only from the faculty, but also from alumni who came back. This plays to the core value of education, personal attention. And as I look at Laney College and I look at great programs in our learning communities, such as Umoja Ubaka, such as EOPS, and those many things, I see that same level of commitment from Laney going to our students. And it's something that's important and something we need to continue to pursue and grow at Laney College to help our students. So as a product of that, I became an administrator. And my administrative experience is actually very, there's a broad spectrum and a lot that has prepared me for this role. As a dean, it was kind of a tale of two settings, small and large. I first was at Woodland Community College, where I was the Dean of Instruction and Learning Resources, and I was the only dean at the whole college. That meant I took on a number of responsibilities. As the administration, there were three of us. There was the president, the vice president over all areas, and then me as the dean. So I learned to grow as an administrator in a system that did not have department chairs and whose responsibilities included sole administrative oversight of a satellite facility in addition to the college itself. So from that very small but comprehensive setting, I went to the largest community college district in the United States, the LA district, where I was dean at Los Angeles Valley College. In addition to being the dean of language and performing arts, I also volunteered and took responsibility for athletics for 2 years. And I became the dean over the entire schedule planning and schedule production. And that was a great step to my next step in my journey, which was to become a vice president of instruction. And again, as a vice president of instruction, that has been a tale of two settings. First, for 2.5 years in Riverside County at Mount San Jacinto College, I was vice president of instruction in a single college district. And that experience prepared me for a lot of the responsibilities I have now. And I'll give you two key examples. Number one, as the vice president of instruction, I sat at the table during all board meetings and gave regular reports, just as presidents in Peralta do. And I understand the importance of that. A, to tell Laney College's story, B, to keep our chancellor informed, and C, to share successes and context with board members so that when they reach out and talk to people that they're representing, they can tell Laney College's story with a degree of richness. The second thing that was great was that as a VP in a single college district with 5 campuses, I was very involved in community engagement. Within our district, we had 7 different municipalities, and I knew civic, education, and other leadership in all of those municipalities, including union leadership such as the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And in a setting and working and communicating collaboratively with unions, that's something along my pathway that I've been able to do and I think I've done pretty well. So from that, I of course, 2.5 years ago, came to Laney College, and I've been so fortunate first to serve as the Vice President of Instruction, and for the last 4 months as the Acting Interim President. And during that time, it's been about collaborative leadership, and I really do believe I am the collaborative educational leader that Laney needs. During this time, we have built so many things that are strengths for us. We have a strategic enrollment management plan that captures the essence of what enrollment management is, namely the outreach to potential students, starting at that point, all the way to the support and what happened and seeing our students through to completion. All of that is the essence of enrollment management and not just a focus on class sizes. And we have certainly captured that. But one thing that's great about our strategic enrollment plan is the fact that it aligns with so many of our other plans and other projects, most notably guided pathways. It's been incredible to collaborate, work, and provide leadership to the Guided Pathways work group. And certainly to support their efforts as they said, let's stop and listen to our students. And a lot of the data we got from that informed a lot of the great work that we've done going forward. Most recently, the thing that we can celebrate is that we are only the 9th college in the state through the statewide mapping project to publish our program maps for students. And the reason why they're exceptional is because unlike a lot of other colleges that have not gone this route but published maps, we have backwards planned. We have shown students the potential of a major, and whether it's the careers available, the salaries, or other information, and then gone backwards into classes. And I think that's something that is one of our strengths and very practical. And then finally, and it doesn't have the same number of bright lights, but our integrated planning processes, particularly program review, is rock solid. I would say that as we move forward, we not only have our processes and we're looking to improve ourselves, especially as we move toward resource allocation, but we've also added that component of teaching and learning to program review, as we've offered help sessions to those who author them to support them as we move forward. So these are just a couple of things, but they're examples of how I've hopefully played a collaborative leadership role in maintaining and bettering a number of the things that we do at Laney. But this job is not about what we've done so far. It's about what we have to do as we move forward. And what is the vision as we move forward? Well, first of all, I want to talk about continuing something that we're already doing pretty well, despite our falling enrollments. The State Chancellor's Office, in a vision for success, said to colleges, in 5 years, you need to improve your numbers of awards by 20%. We've improved by 30, especially and the most significant growth has been in the last 2 years. We need to continue that positive forward momentum. Secondly, we need to restore our enrollments. With the approaches we've taken as a college, that strategic enrollment management approach, we've gotten it right. In summer 2019 and in fall 2019, we led the district. We hit our targets. We did great things in terms of our enrollments. And even when the sky was falling in spring 2020, nobody likes the word productivity, but we were first in the district in productivity for the first time. So we've done these things. We've gotten it right. And yes, summer and fall have been speed bumps for us, but we need to stay the course and we need to continue to move forward. We need to answer the State Chancellor's call to action and make sure that our campus is a welcoming and empowering. And empowering means seeing people forward to completion, not only for our students, but also our employees and all of those who come to Laney. We need to make sure that our institution affirms its accreditation. And I've been very actively involved in that, first as the Accreditation Liaison Officer, and now in the role as President, both with our institutional self-evaluation report and our special report. But continuing the work of guided pathways is really the critical thing in our vision. We need to support students, that third pillar. We need to grow our learning communities, as I've mentioned. Make sure students are supported on a technological level, no matter where they're studying. We need to support them with counseling, tutoring, academic support, all of those things as we work together. And then finally, carrying on the legacy of my predecessor. We need to ensure that we are doing our best to meet students' basic needs, especially as it relates to things such as food insecurity. And then finally, the final piece of my vision, and then I'll open it up to questions, is that as we move forward, Laney needs to become the fundraising college in Peralta. We need to be able to reach out and join hands with our many partners in the community who are dying to join hands with us, to have them also invest their time and their resources into Laney so that we can move forward. This is a very exciting time, and I look forward to the discussion right now, and I'll go ahead and hand it over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Besikof. So the first question comes from student Veronica Steiner, and she has 3 different questions. And I'll start with the first one. How will you provide more intern mentorship opportunities for students at Laney that help them with real-world experience?
So that is a great question, and thank you. I think one area where we are strong is our work that our career education programs have done and the incredible investment that our faculty, our classified professionals, and our administrators have put into these programs. One thing that we have put into as a premium, and we've articulated this in our enrollment management plan and also in our accreditation, is that when we get to finishing semesters for students, that we will support those classes as much as we can, even if they have lower enrolled numbers. As we move forward though, the key that we need to do is engage industry partners, as we've done with East Bay Municipal and also with Union Bank, which will be opening a location on our campus. Really having those partnerships out there and having those in the bank, if you will, so that when students come to us, that we can do that. Now, already much of that is happening with our Career Center, and a lot of those opportunities are there. But in this day and age, whereas maybe when I went to college, internship was a great thing to go and right alongside, we need to go ahead and chase the paid internships for students. And I think that's something that's critical.
Thank you. Second part of her question is, what role does student newspaper play in contributing to communication and promoting transparency? What experience do you have with student media? And what will you do to ensure you are accessible to our reporters?
Pick up the phone when you call. I think that, which I've always done. I've been interviewed now. Off the top of my head, I want to say 4 different occasions, and I've always been glad to cooperate. I actually was on the student newspaper, albeit in high school, and I certainly understand that on a college campus, though, that certainly, you know, First Amendment and all of those things are very important in terms of the student voice and the student concerns. And I think it is something that's important. And I think we're so blessed at Laney because we have 2 things working in our favor. Number one, our ASLC, our student government, has been very good about getting student representation on our shared governance committees. Normally, in where colleges that I've been in the past, you may have your college council, which is kind of your main committee that oversees everything, and you'll have a student rep there. But then when you go beyond those committees, you may not, you're hard pressed often to find student leadership. Not at Laney. It's so awesome that you go to, say, the Learning Assessment Committee, the Strategic Enrollment Management Committee, the Budget Advisory Committee. And when you do that roll call at the beginning of the meeting, that student representation is in the room. So that investment has been great in participatory governance. But another thing that's very important, not just in reporting, but in our college hearing student voices, is the student newspaper. And really just having the opportunity to have students exercise that freedom of speech that is afforded any newspaper, obviously, and to see that happen. It's something I support. Again, my experience was high school, but having that opportunity to write and to do things, it was an incredible experience that shaped me in my abilities as a communicator. And certainly, I would just say that as far as a student newspaper, as president, I lend full support.
Thank you, Dr. Besikof. The third part of the question is, please describe what you feel was your biggest career mistake and what did you learn from it?
Sure. So right now we are all grappling with the pandemic. And I guess I choose this one because it's probably something that's the most recent. And we, you know, just in terms of looking at with our employees with access to campus, it was clear that there were things getting lost in translation a little bit as we were moving along. And while certainly, you know, having been through emergency situations, a number of them as an administrator, campus security, campus power outage on the first day of finals that throws your whole schedule off, and a host of other things. There's a certain mode of communication where you have people's health and safety in mind. One of the things that happened was that health and safety mode of communication, I don't know, I wouldn't call it disaster jargon, but something along that line. We had kind of kept to that going on 4 or 5 or 6 months, and it was causing a number of unintended consequences on our campus. So recognizing that really my response or our response was not one that was organic enough. I actually called a campus-wide listening session. It was about 3 weeks ago to let our campus tell us where they're at, what they're doing, realizing people are, working from home, students are coming from home, or studying from home, and what the needs and the concerns were. We identified this as an urgent issue, and I know that we have a task force that is meeting to come together and really look at these and really move away, not so much from a mindset of emergency response language and mindset, but more proactive planning and preparation as we move forward. We've been doing that, especially our career education programs that have had to meet on campus and endure the most difficult of conditions. But I think it was more a question of communicating out. So I guess the short wrap-up answer to your great question is that along the way, no matter how great your deeds are, or no matter how noble your intentions might be, your communication has to keep up with the moment. And that includes your communication style and being conscious of your audience.
Great, thank you. Next question comes from Laney Gastis. Please tell us about a documented process that you have personally authored that improved one of your previous colleges for the better or solved a problem.
Okay, thank you for the question, Professor Gastis. I guess one I would talk about, and I say this because it has currency at Laney, is as this dean over scheduling, when I was in the Los Angeles district, and this is the one that most quickly comes to mind, we were operating, when I was put over scheduling and had those responsibilities, one of the things that really was apparent was that we had 2 challenges. Number one, our entire schedule build was based on what we had scheduled the year before, and that was based on what had been scheduled the year before, and so on and so forth. And really, we were having some completion issues where we were doing okay with students maybe showing up and making census in those first and second semester classes, but continuing on seemed to be an issue for us, especially for completion. So that was the first challenge, the fact that we were really too attached to the rollover. And then number 2, the technology that was there, and this was 2014, we were using MS-DOS based technology. That was what was there. And I think I remember in the 70s seeing MS-DOS or something like that, which was really a challenge. So in terms of technology and in terms of just the way we were planning, there were things about what we were doing that just, it needed help. And so along the way, what we did was we leveraged tech. We were a district that did not have money to go out and buy super technological answers. So we needed to find our own within. There were discussions with fellow deans and chairs, as well as my vice president at the time. And what we did was we moved forward toward the mindset of, rather than planning on what had been done, projecting forward on what we could do. Looking at the idea of having, being able to plan, but as we plan, be able to see what our enrollments would look like and how we could schedule in a way that would allow us to have more late starting classes, which were beginning to be popular, and the way to, what distance education enrollments would look like. And really just where departments would be and what they would need to schedule and how that scheduling would fit within our instructional budget. This was a process that really took a lot of time and documentation. It took a lot of collaborative work. I think we had 28 department chairs and they all saw the technology that was used. It was something based on Microsoft Excel that department chairs at Laney would probably recognize. And it was something that where we moved into an era of projecting forward and really having a mindset of completion and looking at capstone classes rather than simply doing the same thing that we'd always done. So I think that's the example that I would give. And as we look forward with guided pathways and we look forward to those things at Laney, we need to continue to hear our student voices to tell us what their needs are as we move forward. Because it's not just about scheduling the right classes. It's about supporting those classes in the right way for student need. And if anything has been evidenced so far, it's that the work and the efforts that we've done on all these fronts, we've done together. Sorry, Mark, I can't hear you.
Thank you, Dr. Besikof.
No problem.
Next question comes from Eleni Gastos, and Eleni asks, please describe your experience in leveraging shared governance, in particular, the Faculty Senate, to promote student success. Provide an example.
Okay. Well, first of all, the thing I would say is you can't leverage things with your senates if you don't have an open line of communication. If you're not communicating when things are calm and when there are no problems and when nothing is time sensitive, if you're not communicating in those circumstances, when you get to the moments where it seems like there's a 3-alarm fire or it seems like something was due yesterday, your communication dynamic it just won't be there. So the first thing I would preface my response with is to say that communication has been based on relationships and having that regular check-in mode of communication. And I think that's something that's important as we go forward. Now, as far as things where we've leveraged governance and worked for success and results, I've already mentioned excuse me, I've already mentioned guided pathways to some degree, and I've mentioned some things that we've done with scheduling. Certainly the building of the strategic enrollment management plan, that was something that began not with administrators, but with faculty, classified professionals, and administrators working together to build the guiding principles of a plan, and then from there, leveraging the expertise of each to build goals. And along the way, updating the key leadership to say, hey, this is going on, this is happening, and providing those updates. But also one of the things that's very important is having the elasticity to allow for the senates to look at things and to come back and say, hey, there's a problem here. We actually, or not a problem, there's an opportunity for some feedback here, and to allow for that. And that's something that's important. It happened with our strategic enrollment management plan. It also has happened with our accreditation institutional self-evaluation report. I think that by planning that way and doing a lot of advanced planning and doing those things in advance and keeping people updated and engaged, that was something that when it did get to the senates, both faculty and classified senates had feedback that we were able to seriously take into consideration. But so far I've talked about kind of the box checking that you need to do in that advanced planning. But on the front end, if you don't engage people, that's where your challenge is. And moving to that example of accreditation, one thing I would talk about, and yes, we did follow processes to get it approved, and thank you so much, College Council and Senates, for approving last week. But one of the things that was very important was you collaborate because you want to, not because you have to. As we built our accreditation ICER, our self-evaluation report, we reached out to all parts of campus. We built our study, and you can look in the self-study. Each of the standards was assigned to a shared governance committee. And as we had work on Fridays with coffee and donuts, we would have, 20 to 30 people show up, sometimes less. And all of these people were invested. And what was awesome was when we got to kind of the end stages of all of that evidence gathering and started building our report, it wasn't 20 or 30 people that had been invested. It was 78. And then with our new accreditation liaison officer coming board, we can now call it the 79. So really, shared governance has made me who I am as an educational leader. And it's something that I always want to stay true to as I move forward.
Thank you. Last question from Laney Gastis. Laney College is too large of an institution to be micromanaged. Explain how you would empower your fellow administrators to lead within their area of influence and how you will hold these administrators accountable to their duty to serve their constituents.
Okay, that's a great question. You know, I'm going to go back to when a long time ago. As a faculty member, I was the coordinator of the ESL Learning Center. And we were just getting started. We had not really implemented classes yet within the Learning Center. So I went to another college that was further along than we were to talk about this. And inevitably, the subject got to measuring outcomes assessment. And just in talking about it, I remember asking the question of, I think it was asking about the dean and how the dean does outcomes assessment. And the person stopped me in my tracks and said, wait a second, no, you do this from the bottom up. You start at the class level and you go up, okay? And so I would draw a parallel to what has been my leadership style, which is to get the stories and get the contexts of the departments and the needs of the department chairs and start there and really work up as we go. And I think that's something that's important. It engages your department chairs, it engages your deans and gives them their leadership. And on a side note, one change that has been made is that rather than doing FTES targets out of the VPI's office, one of the things I did was divisional FTES targets, which obviously involves a taking off of hands of sorts. But really having that happen, and then having the vice president of instruction really look at the schedule from that level. And so that's the first thing, and kind of staying out of that as the president and not saying, hey, what's going on with the helicopter flying department? Not doing that, but rather to say, how are our students' needs, what do they look like? How are we meeting transfer? In our career education programs, do we have the classes that will allow students to finish? Asking those general questions. And that has the effect of doing two things. Number one, the micromanaging stops. But number two, it enables, and one of our strengths at Laney is our vice president team that we have. If you include me and Derek Pinto and Vicki Ferguson, we've now been together a total of 2.5 years. So that synergy is there. But what is the product of that synergy at Laney? And this isn't always the case at other colleges. You have that cross-divisional collaboration that really plays to that core value of no silos. And that's something that's very important. So often my role as the president is to look at our vision. Are we on track and are we staying there? And are there things from the president's office that can be done to navigate in those directions? But as far as the actual work, I think it begins with the gift of context, and the gift of context begins in the classroom.
Thank you, Dr. Besikof. Next question comes from Wesley Blackie. CTE programs have been severely impacted by the pandemic in declining enrollments due to lack of hands-on offerings. How would you support those programs moving forward? And I'd like to hear answers other than improving marketing or productivity issues.
Okay. So the first thing I would say is that when it comes to discussions about, because I know in our district, you know, people talk about the average class size or productivity and things like that. I think the first thing we do is from the top, tell the story of our career programs and say, no, if you have a, if you have a biotechnology lab or a biomanufacturing lab, it does not have 45 seats and you are not going to hit a productivity level of 22.5. And in fact, just because we are so strong in our career education programs, it is on the leader of the college to say things like 40% of our classroom space does not even seat up to 35 students. And I think that's something that's very important to again, give that context. And that's something as a president, really explaining that that's important. The second thing, and I touched on it before, is emphasizing completion and enabling completion. Students can't complete programs if third and fourth semester classes are not in the schedule. I think that's something that's very important. It's articulated in our enrollment management plan, as well as our response to the ACC-JC special report. So I think those things are very important. But normally when I answer a question like this, I go small picture, big picture, and I think I've given a couple of big picture answers. One small picture answer I would give, though, is to basically say that as the college looks at its programs and the effectiveness of them, that we really treat this fall semester as an anomaly, that we not really say, well, gee, program X was not successful because of fall enrollments. I don't think that's a consideration. I don't think it's fair. I think about our chemistry faculty, for example, who were so challenged with labs, biomanufacturing had to go completely online, which was an incredibly heavy lift. I think about a lot of the work that has been done. And I really say that, again, going back to my vision, we need to go back to the great things we were doing prior to the pandemic, and we need to stay that course. We need to ensure completion and ensure capstone courses as we move forward. And I think that's something that's important. But what's more important is this, and it goes all the way back to the student's first question. I think that our visibility with our high school partners and our partners such as Laney College for the bachelor's in biotechnology, I think those are great partnerships, and educational stakeholder partnerships are important. But I think those community partnerships, those industry partnerships, where someone who's not working in CTE at all still knows those partnerships and that they're visible, I think that's something that's very important. I talked about East Bay Municipal and I talked about Union Bank. We need more of those. And you know what? As president, I'm on the hook to collaborate with instruction, with student services, and especially with career education programs to make sure that our program is not just about our program and our classes, but about the industries where we are sending our successful students to.
Thank you. So it's 1:37 p.m. I think we have time for one more question before closing statement. This question is from Alina Miller. Us students had to complete the fall semester with COVID, learning the entire summer semester with little to no help from administrators, and now the third semester of COVID learning. Many of us are doing online learning along with multiple jobs just to make ends meet, lighting the candle at least both ends. How will you ensure these classes we are taking are not in vain and will be transferable to other institutions during COVID-19 as different colleges are starting to retract previous statements of not needing in-person labs and classes?
Okay, so that is a very good question. And first of all, as a part-time student, you are 6.5 and 10 students at Laney are attending part-time. So I really appreciate just the voice that you brought to your question. So thank you, Alina. First of all, in terms of classes being in vain, during the spring semester, when the pandemic came, there were special considerations allowed for transferability of courses if a student elected to go pass, no pass. So that is maintained. In terms of the meeting of our classes, we certainly, as we move forward, need to continue to communicate and make sure that whatever mode we offer our courses in, that our students do not pay and show up by showing up at their next institution only to be told they have to take the class again. So certainly we need to continue, and this is really where it's the whole college. It's not just the dean scheduling the classes. It's not just the faculty teaching the classes. It's also the counselors taking the classes. It's the invaluable work that our articulation officer does to ensure those things are happening, especially under these conditions. And it really falls to the work as well of our curriculum committee and the work that it is doing. During this time, one of the things that we have done to guarantee that your classes will have value is that our curriculum committee, since the end of spring, has set up a process to get classes normally not approved to be taught online, approved, and not only approved, but we turned around and submitted them to the state, and they turned around and provided verification to us. Because certainly you want that ironclad guarantee about your classes, and I totally understand that. And that's why as we move forward, one thing that's great about Laney is that we have 23 transfer degrees. And what a transfer degree means, and where it plays first and foremost with me, is that if you go to another college that is a participant with a CSU, that you have the peace of mind to know that your class counts. And as we move forward and as we continue with these, and I saw today, we went from red to orange in Alameda County as far as where we are in the scale. As we move forward now, we need to continue to make sure that we can now offer our labs next semester, and that we can do so in a manner that allows you the educational experience you deserve, but also keeps you, your professors, and staff on campus safe as we move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Besikof. And thank you everybody for joining us on this Laney College President Finalist Forum. Please, if you haven't already done so, download the feedback form, note your comments on the candidates, and email that form to Brandon Christian in the Chancellor's office. I know that the Chancellor would like to hear any or see any feedback that you have on the final candidates. The videos for Dr. Besikof and all of the candidates will be posted on YouTube as soon as we can, so that for those who weren't able to join us in real time, there's still some time to watch and provide feedback. So look for an announcement with the links to the YouTube versions of these forums. And with that, let me turn it over to Dr. Besikof for a closing statement.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you all for the opportunity to allow me to speak to you today. Hopefully you can hear in my voice, Laney College is something that it's a passion for me. It means so much to me as an educational leader. We're all educational leaders, but this role is a special one, and it's something that I've embraced, and something that, going back to 2007 when I started my doctoral studies, during my third quarter of that first year, I identified the role of community college president as the focus of my dissertation. And it's a long-term goal that I've been pursuing, and thankfully now I've been living. And it's something I take every day with appreciation and humility. As we move forward though, this is an exciting time, and you've already heard something about my vision. But one area that was not asked about, that I would like to talk about for a few minutes, is student equity and having an institution that tackles racism, that meets it head on, and that really makes all students feel welcome. I think about groups such as the Lavender Project, which honors our LGBTQIA+ students and employees through a network of great communication. And I think we need to do that for really all students that come. And again, it comes back to that cohort, or that idea of personal attention that we see. This summer, we've taken this on, and we're beginning the conversations. And one of the things I would like to share is that I am so grateful to our faculty for the work that our Senate and our curriculum committee has done so far to pass resolutions about having diversity in our curriculum. That is something that's very important. We need our students and we need our faculty feeling like the great experiences that they bring to the classroom is something that's honored. You know, when I taught English as a second language, it was very common for me to walk into a classroom with 13 or 14 different cultures. And the truth is, I wasn't always the teacher. I sometimes was the learner. And that is something that everyone at Laney College should be fortunate enough to have. As a management team, this is something we've also taken very seriously, and we look as we move forward. We actually within our own circles have active professional development going on, both as a management team, directors, deans, vice presidents, president, and as an executive cabinet, vice presidents, and president. This is something where we are going to walk the talk as we move forward. We want to move out and we want to have that engagement also at the department chair and dean level, and to have those conversations to talk about as we're doing policies and making decisions for students. Are we coming from a frame of equity? And I'm working on something right now that will involve a partnership with that. But most importantly, it's about making students feel welcome. As we move forward, our advertising has gone out. We've sent out advertising and promotion of our classes in English, Spanish, Cantonese, Vietnamese. We've sent them out in a multitude of languages to communicate to students, you are welcome. And it was great this morning to log on and see the Peralta Identity Pledge, which was initiated by our faculty, and to see 213 people, including me, have signed that pledge. And I would encourage more of our faculty to continue to do so if you haven't. This is a critical need. This is a critical time for us. It's a time for us to show that we're walking the talk. And the great thing about our Laney community is the talk is cheap. It's show me, don't tell me. And I really think that in a lot of ways, that's one of the reasons why I applied for this job so quickly and without hesitation. I want to close today again with one last piece of my vision that I discussed. And that was looking at Laney as the fundraising college. My dissertation was on the role of the community college president in fundraising, but it didn't stop with me filing my dissertation. I've served on 2 different foundation boards as a resource at my previous colleges. I've been involved as a vice president in positioning a donor and basically someone who said, hey, I'm interested in this college, to find out what their interests were and to say, oh, you're interested in music? Why don't you meet our music chair? And this resulted in concerts for the community that had a lot of K-12 students that had never seen classical music before experience it, and it resulted in revenue for the college. Also, through a great deal of work that we've done, quite frankly, the food distribution efforts that we've gone to from 2 days a week to now 4, plus handouts on Fridays when the campus is closed. That's the result of cultivating and building relationships with those who support the college. This is something that I will bring with my unique experience and my knowledge as we move forward. This is a great time for Laney College, and I look forward to potentially being its next president. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Besikof. Thank you all to over the 60 people that dialed in for this live President Forum. Have a good afternoon.